Semester number 1, lesson number 37. Our aim today is why were the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments known as the Civil War Amendments? And our do now is read and annotate constitutional amendment process. How does the amendment process work? And this is kind of a refresher on what we talked about earlier in the year. How do we make an amendment or a change to the Constitution? And today we're going to continue on with Reconstruction. And today we're talking, more specifically on the Civil War amendments. And to start off, we're going to look at the amendment process. All right, the amendment process is not very simple, but it's very easy to understand. The amendment must pass through the Senate, the House, and then it must be ratified by 3/4 of the states. So all of the states, once it's passed through the Senate and the House, must vote on the law. Must vote on the amendment state by state. And if 3/4 of the states approve it, then it becomes an amendment. And why do you think our founding fathers implemented this process in order to allow an amendment to take place? And we'll talk about that to begin class. So today we're going to talk about the new constitutional amendments, and right after the Civil War, 3 of them are created. During the Reconstruction period, the states ratified 3 amendments to the Constitution. And part of the agreement for the South was for the North to allow the South back into the Union was to the South had to agree to these amendments. They had to ratify these amendments, and these 3 amendments expanded federal supremacy over the states to protect the rights of minorities. These 3 amendments are going to start to protect the rights of minorities more than had ever been protected before. And remember, this is a gradual process, and this is right after the Civil War. African Americans start to gain some rights, and it's not very, it's some, but it's not all of them, and it's not going to be until 1965, 1964, 1965 that they really get all their rights. All right. And the first one we're going to talk about is the 13th Amendment, which takes place right after the Civil War ends in 1865. And the 13th Amendment is very simple. It abolishes slavery. It says that slavery is no longer allowed in the United States in any way, shape, or form. Right? One person can never have another in bondage for work without pay. And the 13th Amendment really ends a dark period of time in American history. The 14th Amendment, which happened 3 years later in 1868, has 2 important parts. The first part is it declares that all native-born or naturalized people, this includes African Americans, are considered citizens. And the second, it prevents any state from creating laws that deprive anyone of their life, liberty, and property. And really the important part of the 14th Amendment is it gives African Americans their citizenship. It makes them citizens of the United States. And because they are citizens of the United States, they are protected under the Constitution. And therefore, everything that is entitled to all people of America are entitled to African Americans. The 15th Amendment, which happened 2 years after that in 1870, declares that states could not keep citizens from voting because of race, color, or previous condition of servitude, which is slavery. All right? And really what this does is it starts to give African Americans the rights to vote. And in the upcoming days, we're going to talk about, did they really have the right to vote, or was there other ways in which they were prevented from having the right to vote? However, what the 15th Amendment did was it gave them the right to vote. Then we'll take some of your questions. And our check for understanding. The passage of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments in the period following the Civil War showed that A, the states had increased their power at the expense of the federal government. B, segregation would no longer be allowed in the United States. C, federal powers could be expanded to protect the rights of minorities. Or D, the political and economic rights of women were protected. And the correct answer we will talk about tomorrow in class. And your assignment today, be prepared to discuss 1 paragraph on each. Based on the 13th Amendment, why do you think that African Americans endured so many years of racism and discrimination, even though this amendment abolished slavery? Based on the 14th Amendment, how do you think this amendment not only applies to ex-slaves, but other groups of people today in 2015? Can you think of an example? Explain using examples. And based on the 15th Amendment, what word do you notice is left out of this amendment? Who did this amendment leave out? How do you think this group of people may have reacted to this amendment, and why? And we will talk more about this tomorrow in class. Have a good night.